And so you guys probably met
on Grindr of all places.
You are not the first.
Never heard of it.
Dreams can come true.
You got to be careful on Grindr. You could end up with babies. So
You're saying that because we are two men, you will not extend coverage to us. And he's like, yes, just flat out said it. I don't know how much detail you want, but long story short.
All of it.
All of it.
All of the
I'm
details.
I'm telling you, my heart rate's going up. I'm getting excited. I'm buckling up. I'm like, tell me.
Hi, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm good.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you, Michael. Are you ready for another podcast?
I am.
Today, I'm so excited because we're going to be talking to our friends, Adam and T.
They are a beautiful couple in Chicago. I actually went to college with Adam, but the entire time that we were in person, I was not out, so I was still straight.
Wait, so he was out during college, but
yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, so my freshman bestie turned sophomore roommate is his younger brother.
Is younger brother straight?
Yes.
Should I be scared?
Straight as an arrow.
Oh, okay.
And then I met Adam through him, and Adam was in music, and I had done show choir in high school, and I was kind of like freshman year, I was like, I don't know which group of people I am supposed to be hanging out with. So I just sort of latched onto the people in my dorm. But then I was like, I don't know. I kind of I did music stuff all throughout high school, and I was just really missing that part of my life. And that's how I ended up in show choir.
Yeah.
And Adam went to the director and was like, I have someone for you.
Oh.
And he was like,
he got you in.
Exactly.
Oh my God.
Literally.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, it was a small, it was probably a small effort, right? Of just hey, check this kid out. You should have him in whatever, but made it actually a really big impact on my life.
Yeah. Oh.
Because then that was my whole friend group. I then changed my major to music performance with a Spanish minor, and then I was also doing science courses for dental school. So or med school and dental school. So
and even though Adam was doing music in college, he went and later did law. But that's the whole thing. That's the whole point of this episode is we're going to be talking about law with surrogacy and something that he did with it.
They made some news. They made some waves in Chicago with their insurance company.
Taking on Blue Cross Blue Shield for discrimination against LGBTQ plus people and their insurance policy when it comes to IVF.
Yes.
And that's a big topic. So let's get into it.
Welcome to the Who's Your Daddy podcast, where we work to demystify the process of starting a family through non-traditional means.
From foster to adoption to IVF and surrogacy, come along as we navigate this tricky space on our own journey to fatherhood.
Together, we hope to gain insight and answer as many questions as we can.
We are your hosts and husbands, Michael and Matt, and today we are going to be talking to
Adam and T from Two Dads, Two Twins. They are Chicago husbands, and they have two twin daughters. And I went to college with Adam.
And Adam actually just recently released a children's book.
Oh my gosh, we'll get to that later. Okay, oh my gosh,
I was excited.
So welcome.
Thank you. We're so excited to be here. Thanks for having us.
So excited. I haven't talked to you in a gazillion years. Not because we're mad at each other or anything, but we just got out of college and life started happening, and you went to law school and did all the things.
Yep. You were my younger brother's college roommate.
Yes.
Spending a ton of time together because of show choir. And
wait, I didn't know it was that close. You guys were so in the same circles.
No. Well, so Adam is 3 years older than me?
I think 2 years. Because
how much older are you than Zach?
Yeah, 2 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Zach and I were in the same dorm, and then eventually we became
dorm mates.
We were besties, and then we became roommates. Sophomore year, I think, and then that's how I met Adam. And Adam is the reason that I auditioned for show choir. I'm pretty sure.
Yes.
Because the College of Nebraska, University of Nebraska, has a show choir.
And for those of you who don't know what show choir is, because
just look it up.
I am one of those people who did not know what show choir was until I moved to Nebraska, because it's not
it's not a thing out here.
It's not a thing in the Northwest. I think they might have some in California. Maybe I could be wrong.
Yeah, they do.
Okay. But it is if you watch Glee, it's like Glee. I mean, Glee is based off of a show choir group, but it is nothing like Glee. I thought it was going to be like Glee, and it was not.
Glee is like the Hollywood version of what I and Adam pioneered as high schoolers.
Yes.
Like we were Glee before Glee.
It's definitely...
Does T know about this?
Actually, I mean, yes, I heard some stories. Yes.
Were there any videos? Did you get to?
I think
I saw some. Yeah, okay. I did.
Good.
Yeah.
We went to a couple show choir shows when I first moved to Nebraska, and I was like, "This is different. It was very traditional in comparison. Like the dance moves are all in sync, but like nobody's going off and doing a solo-y dance kind of thing. It's more so like everybody does the same movements together.
Yeah, it's like a group sport. It's like a group activity, right? It's like it's a choir. You're doing everything together.
That is not what I saw on TV.
Oh, I wasn't even that into Glee, but I also think maybe it was because I was like, ooh, that might be a dead giveaway. That like, ooh, why is he watching? Like, he's in show choir and band and watches Glee, and
it's also very gender specific too. The way that they broke up the genders in show choir is like all the males were dancing one way, all the females were dancing the other way. The dress was complete, like it was interesting.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see if that's changed it at all.
I don't know.
Okay, anyways. So Adam and T have two beautiful little girls through the process of surrogacy. So I would love for you guys to just like introduce yourselves, who you are, where you grew up, and then eventually like how you met, get into your surrogacy journey and all that.
Yes. Give us the background.
Well, I'm Adam, and I was born and raised in Papillion, Nebraska, which is a suburb of Omaha.
Whoa.
Went to college in Lincoln, Nebraska with Michael, as we already said. And I was supposed to be a music teacher. I got my degree in music education, wanted to teach high school choir. And then I spent about a year and a half sort of doing that, like working as an assistant at a high school. And then I was like, I don't really want to do this forever. So me and my best friend, Justin, packed up and moved to Chicago. And that was in 2011. And kind of decided once we got here that I wanted to go to law school, and then became a lawyer. And it just like, yeah, all this stuff just sort of happened.
Wow.
Yeah. And so my name is T, and I was born in West Africa, Senegal. Oh. I moved here when I was like 17, a little bit of high school, finally at high school, college. And I've been here since. I love Chicago. So let's see. What else? What else should I tell you guys about it?
Did you move here? I mean, you have brothers and sisters. Did you move here with family?
Yes, I moved here. I have brothers and sisters. Some of them live here, and actually some of them live still in West Africa. So awesome. When I moved here, I live with my brother, one of my older brother. I have 15 siblings, 15 brothers and sisters.
Yeah, that's a big family. Okay.
My dad was busy.
Oh my God. I have 7 siblings, and usually I like have the most, like in a room of 20 people, like I'm likely going to have the most siblings. You have 15 siblings, so 16 kids.
Total.
So 15 total.
15 total. 15
total.
But it's, I mean, regardless.
Yes. But yeah, 15, 16, same thing, right?
Oh my God.
Where do you fall?
I'm in the middle. I think, I forgot. I think I'm either 7 or something like that. I'm literally in the middle.
I mean, the odds are in your favor of being in the middle because, think about it.
Your odds are somewhere in the middle, 15. Right? Top third, middle third, bottom third, like somewhere
in there. So,
wow.
Like, yeah, that makes sense. That pans out. Okay.
So you moved to Chicago, and then you've just stayed in Chicago ever since, correct?
Stayed in Chicago. Yeah, awesome. Feels like home now.
And so you guys probably met somehow in Chicago.
Yeah, we met in 2015 on Grindr of all places.
You are not the first.
Never heard of it.
You're not the first to tell us that. Dreams can come true.
I mean, like, we met on Grindr, and that was it. And then a few months later, we reconnected on Grindr, and that's when it like actually became a thing. We started hanging out every day, and started dating.
Awesome. You got to be careful on Grindr. You could end up with babies. So
a whole husband and babies.
Yep. Yes.
That's great.
So what year did you guys meet?
We met in 2015, and then we got married in 2019. So I think that's
okay. Yeah.
Okay.
That's like
y'all
1
were operating
year.
like 1 year after us because
Yeah.
we met in 2014, got married in 2018.
Yes.
Oh wow.
Wow.
Yeah, we're on that 4-year track. 4 years to get your degree, 4 years to get married, 4
Yeah.
years to get your house.
Yeah.
Nice. You
Love
guys
a
have
time.
4 years to get your babies.
Yeah.
Did you guys have a big wedding?
Well, it depends on your perspective. If you're from the Midwest, we had a moderate to small wedding. If you're from the West Coast, we had an enormous wedding. It was like 215 people.
Oh, wow, that sounds big to me.
Adam, does it sound big to you?
I would say that's on the larger side. Yeah.
My sister had 430 people.
Oh my
It's a
god.
South Dakota wedding.
And like I knew a classmate of mine in Nebraska who had 500 people.
I used to be a wedding photographer in Nebraska, and these weddings, they would just happen in a barn, and they would literally fill the barn. Everybody from the town would be coming there.
It's weird
And it
because
was
the
like, oh my
smaller the
God.
town that you grew up in, like the bigger your wedding is.
But I just remember it'd be like 95 degrees with 95% humidity, and everybody would be packed into this barn dancing to country music, and I wanted to die.
That's because that's what he did when I was in dental school. So he moved to Nebraska right when I was starting dental school, and he was just sort of like trying to figure out, where to land as far as like getting a job and trying to figure out what he wanted to do with his life and discovering
and I was like,
himself.
Why is this pleasant? Why is this a happy day? Like, I'm suffering. This is bad.
And then he got into wedding photography and shot a lot of
Needless to
weddings
say,
in
I'm not
Nebraska.
doing that anymore. But
I did attend a barn wedding in Nebraska. It was also a dry wedding. So what I remember is it was also brutally hot, and several of my friends left, and they would just go back and forth between the barn and the convenience store and get these like alcoholic slushies. And we would
Yeah.
just go out back and like pound these slushies, which, alcohol and ice was much needed.
if
Oh
there was
my
ever
gosh.
a definition of hell,
Yeah. Oh no.
I'm sorry. A
Oh,
dry
no.
wedding in the
It's
middle of
bad.
Nebraska.
That's bad.
No hate, but I've been there and I don't want to go back.
Okay, so babies. How did we bring that up? Did we know what month of dating are we talking about? Like whether we want a family? Because we actually know a lot of people in the gay community who are dating right now, and we'll ask them like in the future, do you want kids? And they're like, oof, no. And they're both on like the same page about that. But we were pretty early, like within like the first month or two of just chatting, we like brought up family and like, oh yeah, I think I want kids in the future, yada yada. Is that pretty like you guys are on the same page pretty early?
Yeah, it was actually our second date.
The second date, as in Grindr? The second time you hung out via Grindr?
Like once we started, so like when we reconnected on Grindr, we went on our first date a week after that.
Oh my God,
And
that's
then I think
okay.
our second date was maybe a few days after that. So it was within the first few weeks.
I'm
And
thinking like chatting on Grindr, like, do you want to have
no, but close. It was like, it was early, and it was T asked the question like, "Do you want kids?"
Mhm.
And I did. I do want kids.
Yeah.
And so it was an easy yes, but I didn't know it at the time. But it was like a deal breaker question for him. If it was a no, then it wasn't really going to go anywhere because. I don't want to speak for you.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, for my process, really, even right before I met Adam, I wanted kids. Like, I was like, I wanted to have kids by 30. And I was there at 30, and I'm like, I need to have a kid. So when Adam came along, I'm like, I don't know if you want kids or not, but I'm having it anyway, kind of thing.
Right. Sure. Yeah.
Adam was on the same page with me, which was great. So then I stopped trying to work on it myself, and we started working on it together. Like, it gave me I took a break on it because, of course, at this point, I'm in a relationship. I can't keep trying to have kids or whichever. And we took a break for until we got married. And then right when we got married, because we knew we wanted to do this, as soon as we got married, we jumped on the process. I think
wow.
the next day we were like, bam, 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 bam. Because Adam was like, I'm not having kids with you unless we get married. Because I think there was a point when I was like, let's just have kids. And you were like, no, I'm not having any kids. So it was like, okay, let's get married tomorrow. We're working on kids.
I love it's been a while since Adam and I have hung out, but it's really funny to hear like, oh, he was like this and he said this, and I was like, that sounds very Adam like nope, we're gonna do this and then we're gonna do that.
It kind of sounds like you too.
Like, I love Adam, but I was scared of marriage, and I was just
Really?
scared of marriage. I was scared of marriage, but I was open to having kids. Just like, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, there are a lot of families, even like more so now, and becoming more so now, that are unmarried, just partners.
From your perspectives on that, so T, why didn't it matter? Was it just like, I want kids and it doesn't really matter if I'm married, I just want like kids because I know I'm gonna stay with you forever, sort of thing?
I think I wanted the kid situation was more like I deep inside me I wanted kid as soon as possible kind of situation. The marriage part, I don't know why it never was, just because like being gay in Africa and the homophobia. So for me, I just erased it in my head. Like, you know what? I'm not gonna have a family. I can have a kid or whatever. But the whole getting married, have a house with a picket fence, whatever. This whole dream of thing is most likely not gonna happen. Or if it is, I'm not gonna get accepted. I think it was a comfort level for me, just because I know my family won't accept a lot of it. But kids, you can't just deny kids. But maybe like, and I felt like they would like deny my wedding and not be cool with it. But yet, if I had a kid, they just gonna have to love the kid. It's just part of me. So I think that's where my whole mind was at. Was on it.
It's almost more acceptable to like have a biological child, and that's going to be more easily recepted in the family situation than, by the way, I'm gay and I'm marrying a man. Correct?
Yeah. Because I mean, when we got married, my family like kind of like distanced themselves. Now that we have kids, they kind of like back closer to me, and it's just like so weird. It's just like, what? Yeah, but that's a
so
whole other podcast, I think.
Yeah,
because but I understand that with this, like the concern of having kids is like the biggest concern for the family. Like, are you gonna have kids? We want grandchildren. We want younger cousins and etc. And then the marriage component's kind of secondary. Like, okay, so maybe they're not cool with like male marriage.
Is having my assumption is that having kids in your culture where you come from is pretty important. Like it ranks pretty high up there in like what you do next in your life. Is that right?
Oh yeah.
Okay, yeah. Because this isn't like a great comparison, but there are shows that we watch where
Michael.
See people from other countries and how they talk about having families.
He's 100% talking about 90 Day Fiance from TLC if you've ever seen it. But
well, it's just interesting to kind of hear perspectives, I think, from people who didn't grow up. I grew up in a tiny town in the middle of nowhere, so I think it's nice to learn that stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
And then Adam, you were like, marriage. I'm from Nebraska. We lock it down.
I just wanted to go in the order that I was familiar with. And like, not only because it's what I was familiar with and hoping for, but also because there was no way I could see myself bringing a child or children into my life, into the world, and having a bond with them and not having at least some sort of protections in place through marriage. We talked about co-parenting, and that's definitely a viable option for a lot of people. We have friends who have done it where, a gay couple and a lesbian couple, they're co-parenting kids right now together, and it works great for them. But for me, I was too concerned that something could go wrong. And then something can go wrong even when you're married, but I just wanted that extra layer of legal protection in place beforehand.
I get it. You're a lawyer.
Yeah, you're literally a lawyer. So like, it makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. So going into the process of surrogacy, y'all decided that you're going to start the process in Chicago and Illinois, correct?
Correct. Yep.
Was surrogacy always again, was it kind of like the biological tie, and that sort of like from T's side of things, maybe that led it into surrogacy? Was adoption on the table? Was foster ever like talked about, or is that something in the future?
Yeah, everything was on the table. We did both want to try for kids that were biologically ours initially, and then if that didn't work for whatever reason, we were absolutely open to any other option for getting kids. And even with having kids biologically through surrogacy, we're still open to adoption. So
Yeah,
that
definitely.
was absolutely on the table. It was just something that we wanted to at least try for and see if we could make it happen.
Mm-hmm. You sound so similar to us. It's really funny. It's like, I'm Adam, right? I'm like, first we're going to get married, and I'm going to propose a year before I graduate dental school, because then we're going to get married, and then we're going to move together, and then we'll live in like our house and our new life out in Oregon. And then we're going to wait, and we're going to buy a house before we start thinking about having a kid, because I want to have a house before I start blah, blah, blah with kids. And so, I don't know.
Listening
It's
to this
just
gives me anxiety.
just so interesting. And then it's a very similar path, right? It's like surrogacy was sort of the thing that we were both kind of most excited about, and then adoption and foster are completely still on the table.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's awesome. So how did you start like finding out information about it? Because that can be kind of difficult, I feel like.
Yeah, it was just a lot of research and Googling. And I think the biggest step for us initially was finding a doctor that we felt comfortable with, someone who was not only open, but affirming of LGBTQ people. And we found an amazing doctor, and we had just our initial consult with her. And this woman is a genius. Like she had pieces of paper that she was drawing diagrams on upside down so that we could see them while she's sitting across the desk, and just explained to us basically the entire female anatomy, the entire process of creating embryos, all of it in this like short little session. One of the coolest things I've ever experienced.
I'm getting goosebumps.
Yeah.
I would love to interview her.
Wow.
I want her, like, please educate me.
Where was this?
That's amazing. Yeah.
Was this local, or was it?
Yeah, it was in Chicago. She was at the Center for Reproductive Care. She's now at a different clinic. Yeah. But she's still in Chicago, and
that's incredible.
Absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
So she taught us a lot up front. And she also kind of gave us a warning up front that we might have issues with our insurance company, because specifically gay men run into these issues frequently.
So she like even knew from previous experience of like things coming up with this insurance company.
She was like, what company do you have your insurance policy through? And we told her it was Blue Cross Blue Shield of Illinois. And she was like, well, get ready for hell.
Wow.
She was right. Yeah, she was right.
Is it specifically through Illinois that Blue Cross Blue Shield gives issues with, as far as like LGBTQ couples, or is it Blue Cross Blue Shield in other states as well? Because I used to be Blue Cross Blue Shield for years and years and years.
Yeah, I believe I saw they were being sued in another state. I can't remember off the top of my head. But I think they were being sued in another state for an issue similar to ours.
Oh my God. Wow. That's so interesting.
So what was your expectation going in, I guess? Because we had heard over and over, like, yeah, they don't cover it for gay couples. And, like,
just across the board,
we can't really, there's not like a ton that's been done because there's not much benefit for them. And so I sort of just wrote it off in my mind of, like, even thinking that we would have insurance coverage for IVF. So was your expectation, like, we're infertile, quotes, air quotes, right? And thus we qualify. Like, walk me through a little bit of like what you thought, what you expected, and then like kind of how it all went down.
Sure. This was explained to us as basically two phases. There's the egg donation, embryo creation phase, and then there's the gestational surrogacy phase. And the second part, the gestational surrogacy phase, to my understanding, is virtually never covered by insurance companies. But the first stage is the egg retrieval, sperm retrieval if it's necessary, and then some parts of the embryo creation, I believe, that can be covered by insurance. And so they do have all of these things that you have to meet. You know, you have to have tried to have heterosexual unprotected sex for 12 months or whatever it is. It's laid out in the policy. And so we were hopeful that we could get covered, at least in part, for that first phase, because one of the definitions under our policy was the inability to attain, maintain, or sustain a pregnancy, which as two men, I think we fit that definition.
Sure.
Pretty spot on.
But so based on our doctor's warning, I called Blue Cross before we even started any of this to ask them whether we would be covered under the policy. And the guy looked at our policy. He's like, yep, no problem. You guys should be covered, which honestly surprised me based on the warning that I got. So I was like, cool. And then,
oh my gosh,
5 minutes later, the same agent calls me back. He's like, hey, I'm so sorry. I did some more digging on this, and I actually found out that because you're a male-male couple using a surrogate, we won't cover any of it. And I like really, attorney kicked in and I really am like nailing him down. You're saying that because we are two men, you will not extend coverage to us. And he's like, yes, just flat out said it. There was no qualification. There was no sort of shame or anything. And it was just flat out like, yeah, that's why we're denying you. Okay. And so we had prepared for this because of what our doctor told us. And so we still were able to move forward, fortunately. But I thought this was just so egregious that I wanted to fight it.
Yeah.
And so so many emails, so many phone calls back and forth with all these different people at Blue Cross. And then a few months later, one of those people that I had been interacting with, she called and left me a voicemail saying the exact same thing. Like, we're being denied because we're in a male-to-male relationship.
Oh, good. Now you have it on recording.
We have it on recording. We have multiple agents telling us the same thing that they got from somewhere in the vast landscape of whatever Blue Cross Blue Shield policy they're going for. So yeah, we fought it. And I don't know how much detail you want, but long story short.
All of it.
All of it.
All of the details.
I'm telling you, my heart rate's going up. I'm getting excited. I'm buckling up. I'm like, tell me.
Yeah, honestly, because I read, you guys made the news in Chicago, and I think I saw maybe it through your socials or something, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool that, like, this is so Adam. Of course, like, he's got his law degree, and he's, like, fighting for surrogacy stuff. Like, that's awesome. But I don't know the, like, final outcome. Like, I guess I never really heard, like, I heard, like, oh, yeah, this couple got denied XYZ, and they're going to, like, try and fight for coverage, et cetera, et cetera. But I don't know the details, and I'm very, very interested.
Yeah, I mean, I tried, like I said, there was so much back and forth with the company. I tried working it out with them myself, just like, come on, you guys got this wrong. Look at this again. And there was one person that ultimately was like the person that told me she was going to be able to figure this all out. And her and I went back and forth. She's asking me for a letter from our doctor. We gave her a letter from our doctor. She said, that's not good enough. I asked her why. She said, it's just not good enough. Like, they couldn't give me anything. And it got to the point where she straight up ghosted me, like completely stopped responding to any of my emails. And so that's when I went to the press. And so that got picked up in Chicago, and then it picked up by NBC News. And at that point, when it got picked up, then we start hearing from the company again, and they're like, oh, we didn't see this one thing. And it's like, oh, suddenly now that the press is interested, you're finding carve-outs. So I think they spent like $2,000, and the disputed costs were somewhere in the area of like $20,000. And so we still fought it. The Illinois has this Illinois Department of Human Rights where you can file a complaint based on discrimination if it's, for a variety of reasons. We filed a discrimination complaint on the basis of sex because they denied us because we're two men in a relationship.
Yeah.
It's said multiple times over the phone, on answering machine, etc.
Yeah. Sex, two men in a relationship. Sexual orientation, also two men in a relationship. So it ended, I think it was like a 6-count discrimination complaint. And this goes through this whole administrative hearing process. They tried to get us to mediate. And at that point, I was like, there's no point. I've tried working this out with them. They've made it very clear they're not interested. And so it went to what's called a fact-finding conference, where there's a fact finder and they determine whether there's what's called a scintilla of evidence. Any evidence.
A scintilla.
Yeah. To like
that means like the littlest amount of evidence whatsoever.
Yep. And like, basically, is there any basis to these things that we're alleging? So we go to this fact-finding conference. I am just representing myself, even though I have no experience in this area whatsoever. And then on the other end of it was Blue Cross Blue Shield's corporate attorneys. It was, they're like executives that were named in the discrimination complaint. They had to be there.
The suits.
Yeah, the suits, basically. And so they kicked off that hearing by saying, like, if you guys want to talk settlement, now's the time. And their attorney was like, well, they haven't made any attempt to settle. And I'm like, are you kidding me? What have I been doing for the last 2 years? Like, we just want you to pay this claim. It's not a big thing.
Yeah, it's like, it's settlement. It's it's wrapped in a different bow. It's like, just let me use my health insurance because I want you to cover this bill. If you want to settle for that bill, like, we'll just call a like half dozen, 6 of one, half dozen of the other. Like, just please cover me because I have health insurance.
Yeah, and that's what I said. I'm not willing to settle for anything less than the full amount of what we're asking for from this. And so she said, hold on, let me make a few calls. Comes back, okay, sure, we'll do it. And it's like, we just spent 2 years, all of this back and forth. You've wasted so much money on your attorneys and all of the stuff you've been doing for us to get to exactly what we asked for from the start.
You're kidding.
Yeah. And so then on top of that, it's like, okay, we agreed to settle for the amount of the disputed bills. Then they send me the settlement agreement, and they want us to not talk about this ever. We have to act like it never happened. There was this whole disclosure provision, non-disparagement, so we couldn't say anything negative about Blue Cross Blue Shield of Illinois. And I was like, no, not going to work.
Yeah.
So that almost threw a wrench in things. But then at the last minute, they were like, okay, fine, we'll cut those provisions and just be done.
Oh, they cut it.
Yeah. So
wow, that surprised me. I did not expect them to cut it.
We had an absolutely horrible experience with Blue Cross Blue Shield of Illinois. And it's not just like, fuck them because of what they did. It's also like, they did this horrible thing to us, and we do not want them to do this to any other couple, to any other individual that's trying to start a family, because it's like, it's so unnecessary. It's just,
I mean, it was very stressful.
Yeah,
mostly for him, because he had to do all this work. There was so much paperwork involved in it, and the repeat of them asking the same paperwork over and over and over and over again, and nothing was happening. I mean, every day, like, oh my God, it was just tough.
It's like a form of abuse, this kind of discrimination.
Yeah, it was extremely tough. Yeah. I think the only thing that just kept it, like, that was just making our life fun and all. At that point, we were, I think, like, pregnant at that time when you were going through it. We were pregnant, so that was a happy moment right there.
Sure.
We were waiting on our girls, but so much work was put in. We could have used that energy for something else.
Yeah. But I think what kept driving me is it's really hard to even describe the feeling of having a major corporation like this straight up say that they're denying you because you're in a gay relationship. Like, that to me was so out of bounds, especially when we go to the Pride Parade and we see Blue Cross Blue Shield.
Oh, right.
A rainbow wash.
Seriously.
God. Oh my God. I can't, like, I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around this because it is so true and accurate and says so much about a lot of big companies and corporations out there right now that do that and, like, have representation in the Pride Parade.
Yes.
But then behind closed doors, they're the ones pushing these policies and making life just much more difficult for LGBTQ plus people. Absolutely. And, like, coming around to what happened here, I do want to ask, like, so because you guys we're in a male couple, Blue Cross Blue Shield is denying access to that healthcare provision that they provide to other people that are a part of their program. Mm-hmm. Like, so if it was a female-male couple, they would provide coverage. What if it was like a female-female couple? Or can we talk more about that? I want to hear more of, like, what would have had to have happened in order for Blue Cross Blue Shield to be like, oh yeah, you're qualified under this. Like, specifically, what groups are they discriminating against under their policy right now?
Yeah, so my understanding, which is imperfect and it's been a few years, is if it's a male-female couple, then they can try to meet those qualifications that the policy sets out, like unprotected sexual intercourse for a certain amount of time with no success, and all of these things have to be documented by a doctor, and they lay out all of these things. I think with a female-female couple, they were able to try IUI, intrauterine insemination, and I think that somehow fell under the policy. And then even single, I just don't remember well enough, but
like single individuals,
is all of these groups would probably be covered if they met these various things under the policy, but specifically gay men, because we can't try IUI and we can't try to have unprotected heterosexual intercourse for a year. I mean, we can try all we want and it's very fun, but it's not going to produce a pregnancy.
Right.
Oh, they needed a letter from the doctor that says that, like to explain literally.
Which is kind of like inappropriate,
Oh
perhaps.
my God. You have to be like, so this is how we have sex.
But like the doctor has
And
to
this is
explain
why.
that. Like it's not obvious. Like you're telling me you already know. Like we're both male. Like you know basic anatomy and physiology.
I just can't.
Do you really need a letter from the doctor in order to explain?
And do we even need to try for a year?
Well, and this is where another issue came up, because my whole thing in looking at this policy was that specific language that says the inability to attain, maintain, or sustain a pregnancy. That's us. We can't do it
by definition,
no matter what we try. And so that's the angle I was taking on it. And that in the letter that our doctor wrote, she basically said something to that effect of like, as two men, they are unable to meet this definition, or they're unable to do this thing. Mm-hmm. And so therefore coverage should be extended. And so in Illinois, which has really, really good law for people who are going through the whole surrogacy process, they actually recently updated the law to remove one of the provisions that was causing some difficulty for LGBTQ people. This was well after we were already done with our process, but they have taken steps to change the law to remove some of those barriers that are contained in these insurance policies and in the law itself.
So if you're selling a health insurance plan in Illinois, does it cover, or do they, the provision that covers like a male-female couple, female-female couple, that will automatically extend to now a male-male couple, and they won't have to like go through this whole process of like fighting the insurance companies, or is it still a little bit more vague?
Well, I think it depends on the policy. They removed one specific provision. There's a specific part of that they dropped that makes it better for LGBTQ people who are trying. And I think it has something to do with like, you don't have to try to have sex with a member of the opposite sex for a year in order to the protections of the statute.
I think my biggest surprises with this is that this is legal for insurance companies to deny coverage on the basis of sex or gender. And like, that is what's really hard for me to grasp, because I'm like, wow, that's just legalized discrimination.
And I'm curious, like, if we didn't really like look into it in depth, I don't think. And we were also like switching insurances. So.
But I also know, like, even when we were looking into surrogacy and IVF, that question came up, and it was like, why isn't any of this covered for male gay couples?
Yeah.
And like, that's just a really confusing and frustrating thing across the board and across the country of like not having any health insurance benefit as like people who pay for health insurance, or, you know, have work programs that get health insurance through their work and et cetera. Like nobody is in these gay or like male couples were not granted the same benefits as other people.
Right.
So that's interesting.
Well, and the other thing is not every health insurance policy covers infertility treatment.
Sure.
Right.
And so that's where the employer comes in, because the employer who's using whatever health insurance company to do whatever policy they're doing, that's something that they can easily, our kids are up. That's something that they can easily put in there. It's going to cost a little more maybe, or it's going to change the terms of their agreement, but employers do have some sway here, and they should
leverage.
In my opinion, to help LGBTQ people and to honestly help people who are trying to start a family, even if they're not queer. You know?
Yeah.
On that note, I did hear that Starbucks has an incredible benefit for their employees. Even part-time employees, I think, get some kind of benefit for
family planning or something, family building or something like that.
Right. Yeah. I don't know the plan specifically, but
we had a friend who works for Disney who had like to us, it was an insane amount of money to put towards like surrogacy. So that was pretty cool. And I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know companies were doing this. Yeah. Like I just recently had a job change, and it's it's with Kaiser, and now we have like a Kaiser plan, but I haven't really looked into it because we were already done making embryos by the time I made that job switch. But now I'm like, oh my God, I need to go back, and I can't find anything online, so I'm probably gonna have to call, right? So
talk to someone and see like if there's anything.
Yeah, because maybe we'll need to do another round if we have failed transfers or something like that, and what I'm curious, because the thing that shocks me almost more than the IVF coverage for male couples is the lack of coverage for the birth of the child from the surrogate when the surrogate has health insurance.
Oh, tell me about that.
Did you run into
because that's
that
where I get
as
a little
well?
bit confused. What do you mean by that coverage?
So typically insurance plans will have an exclusion for surrogacy. So if a woman gets pregnant as a gestational carrier, the insurance plan excludes coverage for that. So then you, as the intended parents,
get billed,
have to buy a separate insurance policy or a insurance rider so that the medical bills at the hospital for the birth of the child or children is covered.
Yep.
So I'm curious your take on that.
It's
because that seems
it's
bonkers to me.
I have such a low opinion of insurance companies at this point. My thing is they will will try to find a reason to deny you coverage because that's how they make a profit.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that they're always acting in bad faith, but we've had enough bad experiences for me to have a negative view of them. But you do have to go through this whole process of getting a separate health insurance policy for the surrogate. And I think it also depends on what state you're in as to what you specifically have to do. But we had to go through different plans, see what they covered, see what the deductibles were, see what benefits there were going to be. And that becomes part of the agreement that you make, the legal agreement with your gestational carrier for what coverage they're going to have, who's paying for it, all of that. Mm-hmm. So it is a thing.
In some insurance, you also have to give them a percentage of what you pay your surrogate.
What?
I know. Did we read that?
Yeah, I think
it was one. There was something about it was at least in California. Whatever you pay your surrogate, they need to see the contract, and they will take a percent. They need to get 10% of that, or something like that.
Did they take that in a Okay, so you pay a surrogate $50,000. Do they take an additional? Are you shelling out an additional $5,000 if it's 10% to them, or are they taking that from the surrogate as a tax?
Oh no,
it's your premium, and then also your.
Of course it is.
It's ridiculous.
Why not?
I feel insurance companies have more legal rights than humans.
Yeah.
There's a whole other podcast.
Yeah. No, it's
companies, corporations in general, the things that they get away with, it's truly
because I just feel like they can make up rules and do whatever they want. They're like, oh yeah, well.
Well, so at the beginning, and I don't think we were recording, but people, when we were talking about where we're at, and we're kind of struggling to maybe drop a giant financial check towards a surrogate at this point, and we might need a little bit more time. A lot of people were like, you should check out Canada because it's so much cheaper. So in Canada,
now we might check out Canada.
And so I'm like, girl, sounds like a great idea, because in Canada, one, they can't get paid, which is a little bit controversial. Some people are, have the mindset of well, it's a woman who's doing a job, she should get compensated. I think that's totally fair. But the thing that makes sense the most is that you're pregnant. Oh, you have health insurance. Cool. We'll cover you. You don't have to buy a separate policy because they already have a policy. And I just don't understand.
And it's just covered because
it just blows me away.
If you're pregnant and you have to have a baby at the hospital.
If you're pregnant and then
it's
your health insurance.
It's an inevitable thing that's going to happen. So we're just going to provide the service that's needed to keep both parties alive.
Yeah.
Well, and I don't know the specifics of Canada, but I do know that in California, when we were creating the agreement and talking with our lawyer, you can't pay someone to be a surrogate. You're paying for the stuff that comes along with it, the pain and suffering.
Yes, that's what it was.
The bills, all of that. So you can't specifically say, I will pay you to do this specific thing, carry our baby. You're paying for all of the other stuff.
For sure.
And it sort of becomes the payment, I think, is my understanding.
Correct. It's the weirdest legal backflip where we're not paying her to carry the child. We're paying her because she's electively implanting embryos that will cause pain and suffering.
Yeah, which is a real thing. I mean, it's a real thing. So
yeah, it's just it just seems like a lot of an interesting way to not say that they're getting compensated, but like essentially that's it. They are, because there's not a base rate. It's not like pain and suffering of a pregnancy equates to this amount. It can be 50, it can be 100, and it can be anywhere in between. And so I think that's where it's just so like gray.
I do appreciate like I don't know, at least the angle or the perspective of approaching it in an altruistic way, of like doing it altruistically, not for a paycheck, in the sense of like versus the US, the fee can be so large that it might be, when you're interviewing and trying to find your surrogate, having to differentiate between like somebody who really needs the money and that's the reason that they're doing it primarily and foremost, rather than like doing it for like actually, a good thing, giving a baby to a family. So I that's a difficult differentiation, but like I don't know. I think I would want to work with someone who really, really, really wants to do it in their heart of hearts, of just like, and not so much for the financial aspect of it. But I think there's a balance of like, you can do it for both, and having to figure out that balance. I just don't want to be working with someone. I don't want to have a gestational carrier who just wants to do it for the money.
Exactly.
That's the biggest fear that I think a lot of people approach that at. So eliminating that factor and just being like, they're doing it for the good. I don't know, that's the angle Canada, or what Canadian surrogacy is like. So that's my thoughts in a jumble.
And you guys ended up going with a surrogate in California, correct?
Yeah, so we looked for people that we knew, and we were really fortunate and privileged to have found that. So that amazing. Not only was like this amazing, beautiful connection thing for us, but it also served to like save us a little bit of money. We didn't use an agency.
Dreams.
And because we had friends who were willing to do it, the fees were not as high as they might have been if we had used someone that we didn't know. So these are just like little things that ended up being really big for us. But yeah, our egg donor was my childhood friend growing up. I've known her since junior high. We're very, very
God. That's amazing.
Michael, you might have actually met Amy at one point. She went to school with us.
Okay.
That's incredible.
And then the gestational carrier was T's close friend, Aya, who lives in Oakland, California. They had like lost touch over the years, just as people do. And then we had one of T's friends who was trying to help us find someone. And she found Aya and like connected us with her. And when they made the connection, T and Aya were both like, wait, we know each other.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Yeah. As soon as I heard her voice, I'm like, Aya? Girl, get out of here. What's going on? And of course, we drop out with a friend. She wasn't, like, we were like, literally, we know each other so well. I mean, we used to go to gay clubs together. We used to party. Gig. Yeah, but we had a daughter, and she just like decided to just move and just do her own thing, and like so it was quite awesome.
This does sound like a dream scenario.
Is that sort of why you ended up going in California? California is sort of like the gold standard as far as like surrogacy law and like protections and like laying things out of like how the state and the legal of everything is going to handle it. But it sounds like it was more so like, oh, we found somebody that we know, and we're just lucky, I guess, right, that she's like in California. So
so the attorney basically kind of like suggested, we kind of checked 2 attorneys, one in Chicago and one in California. And really, California had the best one, because the plan was actually we were going to have her here to have the kids so we can be close to the whole process of it.
Yeah.
But after looking at all the legal aspect of it, California was just the best of it. And we were like, you know what, you can just stay in California and we come and visit. And it actually worked out pretty good that way. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, so a big difference between Illinois and California is in Illinois, there's a statute that if you meet the provisions of the statute, you get the protections, and you, like, upon the birth of the child, you are the legal parents. In California, it's similar. The big difference in California is you get a court order of parentage that takes effect the moment the child is born. And so that's different because it's a court order. And so under the full faith and credit clause, any other state has to recognize it.
Is that like a second? Is that like an automatic second parent adoption sort of
Right,
thing.
exactly. So in Illinois, our attorney was saying you'll do all the things the statute says to do, and then after the kids are born, we'll also do a co-parent adoption, so that if the statute gets repealed or if whatever happens, you still have the protections in place from a court order that you've adopted these children. But because California issues a court order, you don't even have to do the adoption. So that was a really great little piece.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
really cool.
because we were talking about this on a recent episode that everybody talks about, oh, we can get both your names on the birth certificate, which is great because some states you can't, but that's not a legal document.
Exactly.
So that doesn't
you still have to do
unless you're straight
co-parent adoption
and like they're biologically, both parents' child, they don't have to do a second parent adoption, right? Because they're like, oh, the biology, it's there, it's whatever. We care more about biology than we do like who's going to be raising these kids. So like obviously if you have a lack of biological tie to any child, then they require you to do the second.
We don't care more about biology than.
Sorry, I'm speaking as not me. Sorry when I say we.
Just clarifying, 'cause I'm like, we do not care about biology.
No, I'm saying we as a country.
Yes.
Yeah. We as a
country.
We as the people who write laws care more about biology than they do like who's going to be actually raising
we were
those
talking
children.
about like the insurance stuff for when the baby was born a little bit ago. Did we finish that? I am trying to grasp in my mind if we finished that conversation.
So I think we finished most of it from like the IVF standpoint. You had to buy the separate policy for the surrogacy standpoint. Did you have another question about the IVF portion?
No, not the IVF portion. The
surrogacy portion.
The surrogacy portion when the baby is born, that insurance coverage and that insurance rider that you get, and then are there no insurance policies that cover that?
I think there are some, but I don't know. Maybe.
I think there probably are. Ours was definitely not one of them. So you have the separate insurance policy for the surrogate, and then once the kid's born, then they're on my health insurance policy as my kids. Yeah. And there's this gap between when they're born and when I think when the insurance company finds out or like makes it all final. And so that gap, I think, can cause problems sometimes, but I don't think we dealt with that.
Interesting.
I think that might have something to do with the order of parentage. Like I said, it's been a couple of years.
Yeah.
But because we had the order of parentage, like that took effect the moment they were born. We could just give that to.
Yeah, they covered it when the kids were. They just don't cover much. So.
Really?
Really looks like it's not covered, but it was covered.
So I was curious because like we don't know where our surrogate might be. We have health insurance, but like if it's in another state, and like doing twins or even doing a singleton, you could have like a long NICU stay. You guys had a somewhat of a NICU stay, is that right?
No NICU, thank God. We just had.
Wow.
Good.
Yeah, our second twin born was Sky, and she was in breech position, and our carrier wanted an entirely drug-free, surgery-free birth. So we did everything we possibly could to honor that. We had a whole extensive birth plan in place, and so because of that, when the doctors wanted to place an epidural in case they needed to do an emergency C-section, that was a no-go. And so we tried all of these things to turn Sky around using like external movements and pressure and stuff. None of that worked. So yeah, that was the really scary part. And then towards the end, it had been 7 hours since our first was born. And
7 hours.
Whoa.
And at that point, I was like, it's not what I want to do, but it's the least bad option. So she finally was like, okay, let's do it. Let's place the epidural. And so as they were taking her into the OR, one of the nurses saw Sky's little feet poking out. And then she just like,
what?
It's really dangerous. I mean, breech delivery is really dangerous.
Yeah.
And I think the fact that there were two of them and one had already been born, I think that made it more dangerous because the cervix can close around the neck and suffocate the child. So it was very, very, very scary.
Oh my gosh, that's so scary.
And we hadn't slept for 22 hours. So it was a wild day, but
I can't imagine for
Oh my gosh.
going through that. That'd be like,
oh my God. She is
insane.
a rock star, an amazing human being.
How do you like?
That is such a long labor.
I just feel like, okay, baby number 1 comes. You're like, great. Like, here's the second one, and then you're like, nope. 8 hours later, 7 hours later. Oh,
what would that feel like?
I don't know.
I just can't.
Oh man, that is amazing. I cannot.
I'm squirming.
Pain and suffering. Exactly. Like that's what you're getting. Yeah, that's what it is. Oh my God. Wow.
7 hours between births.
Wow. So did bringing them home, or the one thing I was leading to, I think, was like insurance coverage in the other state. Is there a difference if you have like Blue Cross Blue Shield Illinois, but you're in California? Is there any issues there?
I think sometimes you can run into issues with like in-network, out-of-network stuff. But I don't think we had any issues.
We don't have any issues. Like they covered it. Maybe it was out of network. Maybe that's why they cover so low, but they definitely covered something.
Okay.
Yeah, they definitely covered something. And they didn't make it it wasn't a hard time either. I think
no, that was all normal.
Yeah, when I called the hospital, I thought it wasn't covered. I'm like, this balance is kind of crazy. They're like, actually, it's covered already. I'm like, oh. Okay.
Okay. That's what I am like kind of scared about. I'm like, oh my gosh, so if we're in another state and then I'm like, my insurance is great here, but then I'm like, what if we have them out there, like somewhere else, like, and then we get this giant insurance bill because it's like not covered, and then it's like this whole other expense that you're like trying to figure out.
That's another thing that when you're working out your agreement, you'll kind of have an idea of the hospital that you want to go to, and you can
that's true. Yeah.
Insurance company and make sure that that's all good to go.
Yeah.
These agreements are so intense, and they account for
everything,
as many potential outcomes as they can.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think it's interesting with these insurance companies and policies. These are private insurance companies that can decide their own rules and say whatever they want and do serve whoever they want, I guess. So, but with that, I remember you were talking about before this, there's like a something that was passed under Obamacare to help mitigate that, or what was...
I don't know if this is why certain insurance plans get to be like, nope, we're not going to cover that for gay people. It's like, it's kind of boring, but it's section 1557. Did that ever come up in your
legal
research?
Maybe.
Well, don't quiz them.
I wasn't sure because it's part of the Affordable Care Act. It prohibits discrimination in healthcare based on race, color, national origin, sex, age, and disability in healthcare programs and activities receiving federal financial assistance. So I think this might apply to specifically like Affordable Care Act plans. I'm not sure. But in 2016, during the Trump administration...
2020 during the Trump administration.
Or sorry, this was
passed in 2016,
correct,
and then it was repealed or reversed in 2020.
It was revised, I think,
to remove the protections
yes, in June 2020. So there's a lot of things happening. So I'm sure this is why they kind of just slid this under the rug. The final rule, which the Trump administration changed, eliminates non-discrimination protections based on gender identity, as well as specific health insurance coverage protections for transgender individuals, adopts blanket abortion and religious freedom exemptions for healthcare providers, reduces protections for those with limited English proficiency, and limits the activities and entities covered, among other provisions. So eliminates prohibitions on discrimination based on gender identity.
So it just
and sexual orientation.
It adds to the narrative of removing protections for LGBTQ
very
plus
specifically
people,
gender identity, sexual orientation, English proficiency, they remove protections for those people.
So that they have less protection against insurance companies regarding healthcare.
Yeah.
But that might be Affordable Care Act specific. So
could be
plans. But I think it's part of this larger narrative of kind of like this in-between battle we're going through right now of we have a lot of different people groups like us, LGBTQ plus people, those who struggle with infertility, and we're legitimately fighting for our rights for protection and coverage from insurance companies to be able to like have the same care that other people are granted.
Well, and that's under like and that especially this year, just like a gigantic explosion of discrimination in healthcare. So
right, and the more laws like that like we're seeing this kind of stuff come up in the news week after week, and it's going against our rights, it's going against our protections, and we're like all frankly kind of sick of it. And so like you guys standing up and doing something about it, even though it's 2 years of insanity and craziness and like work that you shouldn't have to be doing, but you're doing it. And that's the kind of stuff that like motivates me to be like, hey, this is wrong. Like it's wrong to hear about discrimination on insurance and not be provided healthcare. And the only reason that we're able to get care for, you know, our future child is because we're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on it and we're fighting for it. And like, not everybody can do that. And that's totally not right.
Yeah.
So it makes me angry that we even have to do this, that we have to discuss it, that like it's a question of whether or not like we should be discriminated against with insurance companies and healthcare. But like that's the world we live in. And now it's like a topic on a podcast that we're listening to of like, why is this a thing? Why do we have to question this?
I think it's just another thing where people from other countries with universal healthcare are like, that's weird
and doesn't make sense.
Well, I appreciate all of your fiery motivation. I want to talk about this. Yes. Okay, so Adam Motz,
you're holding up a children's book, aren't you?
I'm holding up a children's book for all of you audio listeners. So this is a beautiful book called You Come From Love, written by Adam, illustrated by Jordan Aspiris. Okay, the motivation. Like, when did this come up? When were you like, I'm gonna write a children's book? Like, you're like fighting insurance companies. You're on the phone with Blue Cross Blue Shield. You're in the courtroom. All the corporate heads are there, and you're like, I'm gonna write a book. Like, when do you have time to do this?
It was shortly after we found out that the embryo transfer was successful. So we were pregnant. And I was sitting at the kitchen table and just like, you know, daydreaming. And I was just having this vision of me driving the car and the girls in the back seat asking me a million questions, like, daddy, 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 asking all these questions. Aww. And I thought that one of those questions might be, you know, where do we come from? Why doesn't our family look like other families? Why don't we have a mom? Something to that effect. And one of the things I do as a lawyer is I try to like anticipate questions that judges might ask me and have a really good answer ready for them. And so that's what I was doing with this. Like, oh, they ask where they come from. I mean, we're going to tell them about the IVF and surrogacy and medical stuff in an age appropriate way as it comes up. But I wanted them to understand even more than that, first and foremost, that they come from love.
Aww.
And so then the natural follow-up question is, well, what is love? What does love mean? And that's where this book comes in. It's like, love is all of these different things. It's your family, your ancestors, God, the universe. All of these things come together. They make you who you are. And so I started thinking of this, and then I started writing it down and turning it into sort of a poem. And then it felt like it could be a book. And I was like, oh, maybe I'll like make it into a little book for the girls. And then I was like, well, maybe other people might want to see it too, because it is a really universal message. It's
100%.
Each little thing in the book is a good jumping off point for further conversation. Like, you can talk about your ancestors and your family and who these people are and how they came to be and how they came to meet each other and created you. And, you know, so it's just a million little things, and I'm really proud of it. And it's something really close to my heart. And I'm planning on, you know, I've already read it to them several times, but as they grow, they can understand more and deeper the message behind it. Yeah. Love from the universe, love from the stars.
It's beautiful. No, it really is. I really love this.
I think
I can imagine reading this to our kids at that time.
Yeah. Well, and that's, I mean, as gay parents, there's a lot of books with straight storylines, right? And reading books to kids.
Just like kids from families that have a mom and a dad might ask why our family has two dads, our kids are going to have those questions about that have a mom and a dad. It's like kids just have questions. They want answers. And I think as much knowledge as you can give them in an age appropriate way, I want to do that. And I think it's, like you said, it's important to expand people's worldviews, to show people what different families look like, to tell our stories, get our stories out there, and have them be part of it.
Yeah. And we are hoping that Adam decides to do a little book signing out in Oregon, even though he sent it to us. We'd love to have you guys. That would be amazing.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so where can people find you? Where can people find the book?
The book at youcomefromlove.com. That's the easiest place because you can get it directly there. And it also has links to like Barnes & Noble and Walmart and all the other places that it's being carried. Youcomefromlove.com. Our TikTok is at 2dads2twins, the number 2 dads, the number 2 twins, which is a play on words. We get so many comments from people who are like, this doesn't make any sense. There's not 2 twins. It's like,
I didn't even think of that.
It's fun. Like
2 sets of twins? Is that what they're thinking?
Well, my thing is like there are 2 of them and they are each a twin. And so
that's what I'm thinking.
You have 2 twins, but it also works because we are dads to twins, TO. So it's like that play on words as well.
Oh, yeah.
But
2 dads, 2 twins. Oh, I get it. Yeah. So many ways to spell and say 2.
Okay. Also, this is like, how did that come up? How did documenting your journey come up?
Like really, we just had like this, just regular TikTok. I just happened to be hanging out with the kids by the pool, took a video of it and didn't think anything of it and just posted it. And randomly, like people, it was just like, it just went viral. It was me and the kids sitting by the pool. I think their first week. Yeah. Maybe
I love that.
It was like right after we left California after they were born and went straight to Omaha where my parents live and stayed with them for a couple of weeks. Yeah. It was like the Delta variant was raging at that time. So we drove from California to Nebraska with these newborns.
Oh my God.
And then after that stay in Nebraska, we were driving from Omaha back to Chicago. And during that drive is when T was like, I think this video is like taking off. I still didn't even know how to work
that. You're just like, what happened? Oh my God.
And then it just kind of exploded from there.
Oh, that's fantastic.
That's awesome. Yeah. Adam, do you, I feel like T is a little bit more in tune with the TikToks than you, maybe. Have you learned a little bit?
I have learned. T is definitely the creator of the videos and stuff. I'm like, I do a few here and there, and you can probably tell which ones I make and which ones he makes. But I handle more of the behind the scenes stuff, people and all that. But T's definitely got the eye and the social media prowess.
Yeah, it was just so fun because obviously social media has been a big part of our life. I think it started because Matthew has been on it since he was a child, literal child. And so I feel like I was just sort of like looped into it for the last, 8-9 years. But then it was so fun. I was like, wait, what the heck? Adam's on TikTok now. And they have a following and this is so interesting. I love it.
No, and I will never forget. I was jogging on the trail in Chicago by the lake, jogging. And, there's random billboards. And this huge plastered billboard. And I stop and it's you guys.
Oh, yeah.
No way.
Miller's. It was some beer ad, and I was like,
no, it was Daily Harvest.
Yeah, it's the food.
Daily Harvest, but food. Yeah.
They send food.
We're holding something. Yeah.
It was one of their ice creams.
Yeah.
It's their yummy ice cream things. I remember that they had one, and they didn't tell us where they were putting those. By the way,
they said we need 7 images.
They gave us no info,
and we wanted them to look kind of like this. We brought somebody over. We shot 20 shots right out here, right in our on the street, just because it was looking up
they
at
wanted
the sky.
them unedited, blah blah blah. So
and we're
got all the package together, sent them away.
Had no idea what they were doing with them.
Wow. A month or two later, start getting text messages of pictures of us in random places around the U.S. Got some from Austin, Texas. Got some from L.A. They had it on Hollywood Boulevard.
It was on like it was.
Yeah, I was like, okay.
I think it was literally like Hollywood and Highland, like.
And then I'm like,
right?
please
or
put
something?
us in Times Square. Nope, they didn't get us in Times Square.
They didn't get us that far.
I was.
I know. I didn't get to see any in person, but that was very sweet of you to be like, what the heck are you doing?
Wait, what did I sign? And
yeah. Yep. I didn't read any of the fine print. So. It's fun. It's like this weird. It's just like this weird thing that has like entered both of our lives now, and I'm glad that we get to like share in the weirdness of like kind of being online and being distributed out to the world.
Yeah.
Totally.
Sure.
Okay, well, this has been amazing. One, thank you for doing all that you did to
Seriously.
spend time just telling insurance companies how silly they are. I hope that maybe other people listening to this who, maybe are running into the same thing and can encourage their insurance company to be better.
I just appreciate y'all moving the needle even just a little
definitely.
bit in a direction that's towards more equality and equity
And
for
common sense.
all things and common sense.
Yeah.
And so I appreciate that, and I hope that human rights groups take note and continue to push the needle forward in other couples like us if we see inequality like this or something that oppresses us, like speak up and do something about it. I hope that we are as well equipped as you guys to handle anything that may come our way. And I feel, I hope that other people can find resources and be able to do that too. So looking at you, HRC, looking at you, GLAD, let's get to work. Let's get some donations in.
There are groups doing really good work. There's some class actions out there that are hopefully going to move the needle even further.
Good.
We did our little part. I think if everybody does what they're able to do, their little part, then it'll ultimately lead us to a good place. But there's definitely groups doing good work. And like you said, if we all can do our little piece, hopefully get to a better place.
That was so fun to catch up
and meet them.
Yeah, I mean, you get to meet them. I mean, yeah, it was my first time meeting T, and albeit virtually. You are fired up.
I love the conversation, but I'm just surprised. Again, like, I don't know. There's a lot of things that come up where I'm just in disbelief that this is the state of the world that we find ourselves in. And I'm kind of like, why is this acceptable? Why do we allow this to happen?
Yeah. And I think you're kind of, you're feeling fired up about it. And I'm over here like, how do I know someone who took Blue Cross Blue Shield to court? I'm just like, that just like blows my mind. I'm just like, how? I think like,
I wish I knew more people that took Blue Cross Blue Shield to court.
Ridiculously smart and so talented. We didn't really talk about it, but like he's like a savant on the piano. He can sing. He obviously has like, and he can cook. Their house looks amazing. I'm sure T has like an equal amount of design and food prowess, but I've never met him in person. But like, he's just so stinking talented, and then like also driven.
When we were talking about like him writing the book and all that,
and then he's an author.
Yeah, I was thinking because you asked when did you find time, and I'm thinking, was it during that 7 hours between the births?
Oh my god,
that you just sat down and wrote this book?
Honestly, like that could be a really inspiring time. I don't know. You're stressed out. Maybe you want to like write some stuff down.
Yeah, I would be inconsolable on the floor, like not able to function.
Yeah,
all the things. But emotional regulation.
Yep. I mean, it also shows like the finish line is equally as stressful as the entire journey. I think, right? Like,
or more stressful. Even.
Actually, probably more stressful.
Way more stressful.
Yeah.
You're right. Practically so. But I do want to learn a lot more about this insurance fiasco in the U.S. healthcare system and all of that. I think I would love to do a deep dive on a future episode with somebody whose career is in this like insurance law or healthcare law. because it's a big area that we debate a lot in our politics and everything, and it affects us it affects our daily lives, and it affects everybody. So I do want to hear more about it, because I think it's interesting to know, and knowledge is power. If we know more about it, then maybe we'll know more that we can do about it. And just working in healthcare, you being a dentist, me working as a nurse for a bit, like this directly applies. Like insurance was my everyday figuring stuff out, and I was just like, why do we have to deal with this? This is crazy.
I think private insurance is highly problematic.
Welcome to the club.
I don't know why people are so opposed to having some type of universal healthcare system, whatever that might mean. We spend so much money on it, and it's just, and the companies, we spend so much time too, right? Like he's on the phone constantly with them. We spend so much time with insurance companies where the insurance company is fighting to keep their dollar, and they spend so much time paying people to like keep their coin.
And the more complicated they make it, the more profit they make.
Yeah. And so it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. Make it make sense. If you're pregnant, your pregnancy should be covered. There shouldn't be exclusions. If you can't get pregnant biologically, you should have coverage for IVF. And just like everybody else who has coverage for IVF when they have infertility. I don't know.
Obviously, we're not done with this conversation.
We haven't
so we're going to have to pick it up at another time.
We have not solved all of the world's problems yet.
Would love to hear from all of you on what you think about this topic. Honestly, like message us on Instagram, send us an email. We love to hear from you.
Yeah.
Who's Your Daddy podcast @gmail.com.
I don't think we've ever dropped the Gmail.
Well, that's the Gmail.
Yeah, that's right. We should do that more. Obviously, we have comments, and you can like leave a rating and a comment on
yes, please
Apple,
do leave a rating.
Spotify, all those things.
That helps us out so much.
But yeah, if you have like a really long thought and you want to email us, please email us. We would love to like dive into maybe either a few questions or comments.
Oh, that would be great. We should do a Q&A episode.
Yes.
Literally send your questions. We'll do a Q&A.
Absolutely. I mean, because you might have a question that we've never thought about. That would be amazing.
Yeah. Inspire us for future episodes.
Please.
More topics. Yay.
Oh, and last plug, You Come From Love. Grab the book.
It's a beautiful book. Illustrations.
If you have kids, if you are an adult and like children's books, get it for yourself. And I think that's all we have for today. I really appreciate everybody listening.
Yeah, thanks so much for listening.
Please follow, rate, comment, all the things.
And
until next time, Daddy's out.